Oh my God, it's episode number 9 of After Dark. I'm Griswold Grimm, and we're doing it again. Sorry about last week. Life happens. It's just a reminder of the tenuous bond between Meat Space and where where we meet together here after dark. So I apologize for that, and let's move on to tonight's show, Bread and Circuses. I'll let my panel introduce itself. Zara?
Hi, my name's Zara Altair, and Grizz just asked me about a half hour ago, do you want to join to be the factual representative because I am writing a historical novel that does include circuses and emperors and bread. Bread was something the emperor gave to the people. That's it.
Franklin?
Uh, Hi, my name's Franklin Stone. I really was interested in joining tonight's panel because some of the topics that are going to be touched are very dear to ideas that I like to spread to people. So I'm definitely looking forward to digging into this and teasing out what kind of interesting things we can from this topic.
So it's resonant with some of the memes you're infested with, eh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, to start Bread and Circuses, I'll say that my first exposure to the concept, I think, was through the movie Gladiator, because I think some of the one of those movies, probably Gladiator, maybe not, where they introduced the concept of pacifying the public through bread and circuses. And so I think Zara's got a better idea of what was actually happening that was squeezed and shot into the movie for me to pick up. So would you like to clarify some of that for us, Sarah?
Well, I think in that particular case it was, when the people were disgruntled. And so one of the things that emperors did was to hold the circus, which was held in a giant, actually it's not round, it's elliptical, giant circus, and people would come and there would be games and chariot races and the like, and people loved it. I mean, I just think of...
Is that where they burned the Christians?
Sometimes, yes, they did.
So that's the kind
Yeah,
of entertainment they liked back in the day.
there was a lot of it. There was bear baiting. There was actually that they had it evolved into two things. There were the animal things that happened, like bear baiting and bear fights, and then the circus with the chariot races and the gladiators. But anyway, it was the entertainment for the people. It
So
was,
they had hunting shows and NASCAR and
yes, exactly,
boxing.
exactly. That's it, exactly. And but at the same time, whenever something like that happened, the emperor provided bread to everyone, and
There
and
was lots of
so
hungry people then.
yeah, they fed the hungry people so they wouldn't be hungry at the games and wouldn't be disgruntled. So that is why in that particular reference, we'll give them bread, we'll give them some entertainment, and they
They
won't,
won't riot.
yeah, they won't riot, although there were riots later in the circus. Um,
Well,
but
it only works for so long, probably. Cheryl,
right,
Mark,
well,
goodness,
because
hard.
the riots actually happened because part of
Christian.
what well, part there were what were called factions, named by colors. They started out red, white, green, and blue, and they had speakers and like a chorus who would come and present to the emperor what they wanted to have happen for the people.
So was it
So
like did it actually impact government, or was he just, pretending to
it
listen?
did actually impact government, yes, and he had, and he was in that situation forced to make decisions on the spot because they'd be there in chorus saying, this is what we'd like, and we demand from you, O great and wondrous emperor, we would like these following things, and then they'd have a list. And I was frantically looking for an example, but I didn't find
No,
it.
it's funny.
But yeah, it was. It
Funny
was a very
where I wanna go
political
with it.
deal, and thousands.
So American Idolish or America's Got Talent, like
No, it's more like NASCAR and football and our football, where lots of people come and they get very fired up about their team.
all right, Franklin. Where would you like to spin Bread and Circuses tonight?
The important aspect of Bread and Circuses to me and why it connects with me so deeply as a theme is because I see a lack of needed and I think desired social change from a great deal of the population, and not getting done. Those things are not being accomplished because of the current bread and circuses that are used to kind of keep people from getting out and being disgruntled about the things that should be different. I think things like Major League Sports, all that money, all that fervor from the population, people fighting in public over sporting events and things like that. That's where they feel like their passions can be actually seen, and repercussions for their passions can be pursued in some kind of way that makes them actually feel. Whereas trying to get things done through government and actually making change that might really affect their day-to-day lives, where they don't have to be glued to the TV, it doesn't get done. They can't see it there. It doesn't happen. So
well, I totally agree. I totally agree, and I think there's another part of that, Franklin, and that is that the information that is dispensed is spin. I'll just leave it at that. So, and
in order to get them riled up, because it's an energy siphon. I mean, if you can control where people are directing their time and energy, you can control the output.
And that's the bread.
And maybe they won't notice these significant things that are happening over here because we're doing all this stuff.
That's really the lure of the bread. Your most primal instincts, your most deep felt needs. These people with feelings of aggression because of the stress that society puts on them. They want to see that aggression played out. They're watching violent sports. Back in the day when, you're really wanting to riot because of food, not having access to your needs being met, if you offer somebody food, they're going to be there to see your palliative, your games, your entertainment. And I think a lot of the same thing here, because there are lots and lots of people who are intellectual enough to need media stimulation, news and political stimulation, actual info that they can build,
or at
deeper
least
pieces
stuff that tastes like info.
Exactly, something that they can build a deeper logic from, where they can express those ideas intellectually, and that kind of bread is left out through the media as well. We'll stimulate your latent desire to see change. Sure, here's what's really wrong, and then they present you with your bread.
Speaking of such, I want to pull in this comment from Hard GA.
Yes.
That says, Bread and Circuses was also an episode of Star Trek. And as I do with any show that I'm putting together, I Google it to see what's out there. When I use my title for the show. And so I read about that particular episode of Star Trek, researching tonight's topic. So I'm glad you brought it up. It was, and because like you were saying, Franklin, about how we find outlets that fill the social change void in us, and like having those episodes of Star Trek where people share those sets of beliefs that lead that way gives us another another place to direct that energy. Trekkie conventions, forums on the internet.
And then
That's
people that
another
agree
way
with
of
you and understand the worldview. It's really bizarre too. There's so many other things that work that way. Even goal setting. I think there was a scientific study that was done, I guess, a year or two ago. If you say your goals out loud to other people, it slightly makes you feel as if you've already achieved them. That little bit of goal, serotonin release from getting the job done because you feel so good letting everybody else know what you want to do, it sets you back a little bit. It pushes you back just a little bit. And I think that's a similar effect. I want to see social change, so the media that I put in my brain appeases me. And then that also, softens you up and makes you less ready to act on that on occasion. So
it's like I donate to charity. That's like the extent of the required social change involvement for me. Something like that. I did want to spin it in another direction tonight, and that is that
okay.
if you become in a big enough circus, the bread takes care of itself. And by that, I would, Kim Kardashian. So, I mean, to me, my perspective is she made her life a circus, and now she's rolling in bread. And there's an entire business around that supports that sort of behavior, making yourself a circus to help distract people. Because what's your take on that?
Zara, if you want to, I think I'd like to get a bit of your perspective on this.
Boy, I had never thought of Kim Kardashian in quite that way, Grizz.
That's what I do.
And I think that's an individual case, and there are always people who are able to do that. But it's still a distraction. It's still like their circus, but that's still, and anybody who goes along with that and follows it and wants to know their intimate details and all that sort of thing, they're still being distracted from everything that Franklin was talking about just a minute ago. It's another distraction. It's another distraction. And I think, we have a responsibility as citizens of the universe to discern the difference between distractions like that and what is important in our social milieu.
I see that. I see that side. But what about the side is, it's my life. What if I just let me watch football?
See,
I don't. Is there a responsibility to enact social change to steer the country?
See, and that's a huge problem because at a certain point, the way that things are structured for people, the vast majority of them, you're asking them to then give up their only relief. If you're working so much that you don't really have any downtime and you make special time for your circus, and then you're asking somebody, hey man, no, you need to hit the books. It's like, what? You want to take, I slave, and then you want to take the little bit of, recreation that I have from me? Absolutely not. And there's almost a fight there when I talk to people. It's like, why are you spending $20 at the movies, man? Why would you give those people that money? You don't like that movie company. You already told me you aren't going to like the movie. But you'll go out and spend the money and give the movie theaters money. And it's, a self-fulfilling cycle, which is kind of what you were saying. After it gets put into the circus, it feeds itself. It perpetuates the status quo. It makes it stand on its own. The perpetual motion machine almost.
I want to say there's going to be a percentage of apathetics. And apparently, based on the way I see things, it's a fairly large percentage that are comfortable enough that they don't see the need to rock the boat. I mean, they'll take whatever it looks like progress is being made and say, okay, well, that's being taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. Let me get on with whatever it is I want to do. And so, do we then need to develop a political system that somehow incorporates the vote of the apathetic without them having to do anything? Like, what's the minimum? How do we structure their involvement so that it takes the minimum effort from them to achieve the maximum desired results?
I'm gonna hit. Can I do a two?
Please, please.
Okay. The first thing is, I don't know if you've seen, but they're talking about these AIs like the Cortana app for the Microsoft phone and the Google Now app and the Siri app acting within the next 10 to 15 years. I wish our transhumanist friends were in here. They're talking about having an AI double that can do things like, no, you know what? It's the third week of May. He wants corn today, and it just knows because it's around you all the time, and it will order the corn for you in your grocery list, and it can make those kind of decisions for you. I don't know why there wouldn't be the ability for a artificial intelligence that knows you well enough to say, hey, I know what your values are when voting and your political ideology. This is the person that best represents your views or your desires. And it could auto-cast a vote. The other thing that I wanted to say is...
As far as I'm concerned, hold on, let me run with that one. Save that.
Yeah.
Back to a second. Like, and all they gotta do is watch your G Plus stream and see which memes you plus. Oh, he pluses these memes and those memes, so that's how he feels about these issues, blah, blah, blah. This is his representative. Anyway, go ahead with your second one.
The second thing that I wanted to say is we now have, I don't know if you know, but most people don't vote. Like, the majority of people probably don't vote. And, there's a few, dedicated people who actually think it's going to make a change or have seen it make a change before that go out and, do those things. I think if you made it easier and distributed, where you weren't going to a polling station, where you had a insanely clever piece of technology, which I think we can make, where you can do your voting via the internet. Who would miss voting day if you could do it on your phone? I just don't see why. I can't imagine it would happen. And there are technologies that can keep that safe, where it's not going to have this guy voted 4 times or this person voted 9 times. There are easy, safe ways to do the security for that as well.
Okay. Are we going to remove?
So you're saying
will our
that
technology
more apathetic people would vote if it were that easy?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's safe to say that reducing the barrier to entry in the process will always increase the number at least a little bit. I don't. I think you'd almost have to pay people to vote.
More bread.
I mean, it's just from what I gather from society to get actual numbers, because it's a hassle. Like, at a lot of levels of society, just getting through the day is a heck of a hassle, and asking them to vote is a bit much. How do we fix that without people voting, though? Right?
These are all issues that I really feel the things that I advocate for would kind of, help resolve, because you can't have people stuck in a system where, they are slaving away so long that they can't dedicate the time to function properly in politics. Because if you aren't well informed about the things that you're voting on, even if you feel very passionately, you could be wasting your votes, or not voting in your own self-interest. And that just comes from having the time to really look at what information is available about the political climate of the time that you live in. And I don't think a great deal of people even have access to do that. I think they know, what, even bothering to go out and vote today might shoot myself in the foot, because I don't really know the nuance of what's going on in politics today. I have an idea, but what if I hurt myself?
I don't know.
What if I do something in my own disinterest?
I would be impressed if they worried about, I don't know enough to vote.
There's people that do that stuff with science, though. There's people that do. That's why we have representative politics at all. I know there's at least 15 dudes on a college campus somewhere that are way smarter than I am, way more motivated to go vote. Sure, I align with their political values. Let them go vote. I can trust them to do the right thing. Why would I? Don't. I've been working in a factory for the last 9 hours. I don't have time to read up on this. I could definitely see that being a demotivating factor to wanting to even participate in learning about politics.
But how much of it is just that the circuses are so good?
I'm hooked, man. I'm hooked on a lot of it. It's bad.
I just did my series binge on the Walking Dead season that hit Netflix, and it was delicious.
I do Star Trek. I have a huge problem with it. I'll even private information. I watch some anime, and I mean that stuff goes on for years and years and years. It's a money sink, and I do it, and I can't help myself. I'm addicted to the fantasy of it. It's recreation for me. But I know that I'm working against my own self-interest when I spend time and money fuddling around with cartoons.
Everything in moderation, right?
Yes.
I wanted to bring up this comment from Hart.
Yes,
yeah.
Bread and circuses primarily kills compassion and empathy.
Here, what I thought we could take a little spin on that.
It does seem most of the time that the circuses that we get are competitive in nature.
And perhaps even desensitizing.
Yes.
Criminal Minds,
I think I think it does foster a familiarity to the background noise of everybody's day, where you have to look out for numero uno, be brutal when the time comes, and if every other stimulus that you get is about being competitive in nature. Definitely
regularly scheduled programming. I'm going to bring this one in from Cheryl Deuce. So if you paid people to vote, would you really get real numbers? Just click a button because I paid you doesn't lead to a true decision. Mm-hmm. So that brings up the whole what's better, no vote or an ignorant vote?
That's hard to say. They almost feel equally, unhelpful.
But could they make something like civil participation be a citizenship requirement?
I don't know if you saw, I guess it was on the John Oliver show. One country does have mandatory voting, and because they force people to do it, it's like a joke to them. There's 3 or 4 Barack Obama impersonators running for president. During one of their first mandatory elections, a rhinoceros won an election in a government somewhere, like in one of the municipalities. So that, I think that's true too. You'll get people to kind of throw concern to the wind when you're forcing them. It becomes a point of resentment to the population.
Oh, I'm trying to think of other angles I wanted to take Bread and Circuses before the show's over. I want to look. I like looking at it that it existed then, and that the same concept is still in place now. What can we learn? Did it evolve? In what ways it evolved? What needs of the population is it filling? Why does it work? If you want to run with any of that?
Well, I think that you have to remember that if you're using the analogy of bread and circuses comes from a time when there were no votes. People
faction thing you were talking about sounded
everything is formalized, and senatorial places were bought and sold, And then the Senate did have, as time went by, did have more and more power, but it wasn't representative. It wasn't like representing the people in any way,
Is
shape,
it
or form.
now?
But
Is it now,
well,
or is that just I mean,
I,
is that
And
actually?
I think
historical incidents is out, and you can make your own inferences. But that, yes, I mean, you, you think about
I think
At least it
lobbying.
looks like it now, right? At
Yeah.
least it looks like it
see
now.
I think that's the core of the issue, though. The nature of the bread and circuses and how they've changed, even though there are still bread and circuses, their purpose is to provide a different illusion. It's to present people with different information. So it's the nature of, like, the choice wasn't there, and the choice still isn't here, but the illusion of choice has been provided. So the illusion of choice needs to be reinforced through your bread and circuses. And
Yes,
that's why they
exactly.
changed
Oh, well
the way
put.
the media is distributed. So I think that's probably stronger there.
So
It's
historically, when did
subversive.
it quit working? I mean, we can look at them as societies who have lived and died. Like, if you look at the society as a living being with a lifespan, and this is what it was like when it was young, and this is what it was like right before it died. The societies that did that bread and circuses stuff died out, or spawned offspring.
Hmm.
And
Right.
so, what happened to the bread and circuses one?
The
How
Crusade,
did they end up going down?
the Crusades.
The Crusades. That's
Mm.
Rome ran out of
Well,
bread.
first Rome was not Rome in the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, the seat of the Roman Empire, shifted to Constantinople because of Constantine and everything that happened thereafter. And even though the Roman Empire shrank and died, um, the Byzantine Empire had bread and circuses for another 1,000 years. And it was the Crusades and the invasion of Constantinople by the Saracens that brought it to an abrupt end.
I still think that there were forms of bread and circuses happening during the Dark Ages, during medieval times. I
Yes.
think the real end of the old style, you come and watch games and brutalization, have some snacks, that type of bread and circuses ended during the Enlightenment, where you had regular people actually, in a constant state of revolution or revolt, where they're, enacting violence against the state. And until that calmed down and people thought of themselves as the state, did the nature of the bread and the circuses change.
right.
I think that was probably the transitionary period.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a series of cartoons I can watch that explains accurate history? Because I don't trust what I came away with from schooling, and I don't think I could be motivated to get into it if it wasn't in a cartoon format. I've just been conditioned thusly.
A little Schoolhouse Rock
Make
on bread
some.
and circuses.
Can we get some civic-minded, talented people to put those together? Can we do that sort of thing nowadays?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this has been not as circusy as it could have been, but we are ending, and we are meeting our half-an-hour obligation almost. So let's do anything you want to plug and any last thoughts. And I'll start with you, Franklin.
I don't have anything to plug. I don't sell any stuff. I'm just trying to, advocate people maybe living a little bit differently. There's stuff for me if you go to my Google Plus account. Thank you for everybody who listened in, and I hope my ideas resonated with some people.
Right. For the record, Franklin, since you don't have anything else to plug, if anybody asks you if you want to plug something, feel free to plug the show.
Oh, yes. And as always, watch After Dark.
Sarah.
I don't know how I can top that one. I'm not going to plug anything here. It's just been a really interesting discussion, and I think maybe, Grizz, we should carry it further and have an episode about illusion and delusion.
Delusion.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I might tip too many cards if I do a delusion episode. I will have to think about it.
We touched on those two things tonight, especially, from some of the audience feedback, and it was just like, and we didn't really get to those places.
Rain showed up, and I wanted to point it out because it's the first time I've noticed her in the audience. So glad to see you here, Rain. And there is no accurate comments. Yeah, yes.
That's right.
Let's win and write our own book.
Very true.
So,
I'll just say one thing as corollary to that, Rain, and that is so true. And I'm telling you that doing research for narrative fiction is so wonderful because you can take what historians say, and they may disagree and have these giant scholarly disagreements, and you don't have to enter into that discussion. You just take what's there and put it together into a story. It's a completely different process. But you're right. There is no way that we can really know history. Anyway, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you. Lots of good comments tonight. And yes, watch After Dark.
Thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks everybody for watching now and in the future. And thanks Sarah Franklin. We'll be doing the after party. I'll drop the link shortly. And I'll see you next week.